Strong Dads would like to welcome Casey's Outdoor Solutions as a new sponsor to our podcast. Casey's is a premier garden center and gift shop located in Lawrenceburg, Indiana. Casey's offers a wide selection of plants, landscaping materials, home and garden decor, and gifts for every occasion. Casey's is committed to providing exceptional service, a unique shopping experience, and value to every customer. Stop in and see what makes Casey's so unique. Located at 21481 State Line Road, Lawrenceburg, Indiana, or call 812-537-3800. Let Casey's help you add beauty to your home.
Hey guys, what's going on? Welcome back to another show for episode here. We're gonna do we got Merle in the house. We got a special guest. We got our first guest on the YouTube channel.
On the YouTube channel, wow. And well, not quite 2021. I had somebody kind of on the edge there, but you're almost. You're almost.
First one in studio here. We're in studio here. We got a guest.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, we have a guest, but before I just shout out his name, even though you can probably see his mug there, but before we start that, we have some history.
We have 30 years of history is what I called out the other day.
Right. You're making me feel really old, but your first memory really of me is in the classroom.
Is in the classroom.
Yeah, and I remember you as an even a younger boy.
Absolutely.
Like hanging from trees and getting electrocuted and
Things
stuff
happen.
like that.
Things happen around here.
But no, actually back in the 90s, I was your science teacher over at East Central High School.
Absolutely.
And,
and I'm not just saying it because I'm here, one of my favorites. And
hang on, let me
for real.
No,
seriously, like
cut that out, Keith.
I don't know what, maybe he was young and vibrant then. And
I was young and was vibrant. Those were the keys.
But that was one of my favorite classes. I was really into science, and I really, and you were at Bright Elementary with all three of my children.
That's right.
So he has also had an influence on my children as well. So maybe it's a cult thing. I don't know. Maybe he's got me brainwashed.
I don't think I'm not going to edit any of that out.
Edit it all out. That's garbage.
So we would like to introduce Keith Cheek to the Strong Dad Show. Keith, thanks for joining us.
It's an honor to be here. I've been watching you guys. I really like the program.
Good. Yeah. So you might think that we're just going to let Keith continue to talk about how great I was as his teacher, but that's really not where we're going to go. Kyle will not let that. We brought Keith in for a reason, and we're going to let him speak a little bit about that. But we have had multiple shows, and at different times, topics of dads interacting with their kids, and especially through sports and activities and things like that. And I've known and kind of watched you over the years, especially with raising your kids, your involvement with your kids and their sports to the point where it's even you've grown that and you manage and watch other teams and now whole organizations. And so you're really you have your finger on the pulse of youth sports and athletics and that kinds of thing. Before, it was kind of funny because we talked about doing a show, and I thought, I better kind of preview Keith, because I have a stance on sports and athletics, and we've talked about that here in Strong Dads, and you and I talked about this a little bit in advance because I don't want to contradict anything that we believe here that's important, and you are right in step with me, and so agreement with me is not what I'm seeking. More of making sure our message is factually based and really supportive and helpful to our families.
Right.
And so part of it was, I really don't need, or I wouldn't agree with somebody who said, sports are the end all be all your kids are going to be pro athletes. Right. That's just not the reality,
Nope.
And I love sports and I love working out and all that stuff. But the reality of it is your kid's not playing pro ball. Okay.
Right.
Yeah. That's the reality.
Right.
And so what we really want to talk about more today is just how, especially our younger parents coming in, how do they approach just activities with their kids? How do they balance that with the family, with their faith, with school, with money and time? All of these different things come into play, and sometimes we can see that get out of whack.
Absolutely,
right?
Absolutely, it can.
So anyway, we're just going to have some good conversation, and I'm going to. Keith is here because he's on the front line of that, and you get to deal with a lot of those parents.
Always, the full gamut I have seen over my 8 years of coaching.
I coached Probably about 20 years. Okay, about 20 years, maybe a little over that. And the thing that was probably most difficult over all those years was never the kids.
Right.
It was always
kids
the parents.
Are great.
Nah, I mean, kids are kids, and when they're knuckleheads, they're knuckleheads. When they're stars, they're stars. But parents drove more coaches out of the business. Good coaches, good referees. Oh, yeah. And I'm sure you see that. And we're going to probably have some discussion just like, okay, wait, what's a good way to approach this?
Absolutely.
To help your kid and to help the whole organization or sport or activity that you're doing.
That's what we're about. I'm a referee as well. I'm a licensed referee.
Okay.
I saw an issue there and jumped into that as well. So I understand that aspect of it as well. There's some issues there.
So how about give us a little rundown on just, I gave a kind of a very skeletal view of what you're involved in. Give us a little bit better view of what you're doing right now.
Absolutely. So I run Tempest FC Indiana. And just to jump back a little bit, when my daughter decided to play soccer, and she could have picked anything. And that's what you're going to see a big message from me today. We're going to talk a lot about sports. They could have picked underwater basket weaving. And I would have went all in, and I would be starting a program or coaching that. You know what I mean? So you can take this as outdoors activities with your kids, piano, art. Again, it's about getting involved and going all in to support your kids. So, my daughter picked this sport after we tried a lot. I saw, as I like to do, I went in there and said, it isn't set up for the girls and young boys in this area to play that particular sport. So I went out to give them a better experience for kids over here. And it just grew. There was a big need for that. And so the club has grown to 18 teams in this part of the state. We have our first state championships and all kinds of things like that. So it's been an amazing program, and it's really elevated the soccer and youth sports in this part of the state.
Yeah. So your personality is one, a go-getter, and two, an organization guy.
Absolutely.
You kind of see the bigger picture of, well, what would this look like on this scale? So that's kind of how your mind naturally works, and you saw the potential or the need even for that.
I mean, it was a need, but and that's a whole nother story we could get into. But again, how are we setting our kids up, and are we setting them up for success in school, and with their activities and socially? And so I saw that could change for the better, and a bunch of people helped me do that. So find a need and address it right away.
Well, Keith, I mean, we got, obviously Dad's gonna be listening and watching us. Give us a little bit, just so maybe our dads can relate to you. So how many kids you have? What age? Boy, girl. So just a little background on that as well.
Absolutely. Well, and also grew up around here. Went to East Central High School, as we talked about.
Yuck.
But grew up.
Hey, I will edit that out.
Okay. Taylor, what do we? Grew up around here. I have 3 children. My oldest is 19, and she was a dancer and a volleyball player. Again, we were very open to letting them choose their activities when they were young. I grew up playing all these sports, so a lot of people think I kind of pushed my kids in, and I see how people see those kind of things. But like I said, if they pick piano, I'd be a piano playing dad, getting concert, So she's 19. I have a 15-year-old daughter who I built. This is what she decided to go out and play soccer, and it changed my entire life. And there's other reasons why. And I think maybe we get into that today, but as a father, what I needed to do and what I wanted to do to focus my life, I think a lot of that came in to that age as well, as I was just having children and figuring out what am I going to do and what am I filling myself with. And, a lot of those things change when you kind of hit that age. So I have her, and that's what I built all this around. And then I have a son who is 12 years old. And all 3 of them, I exposed them to a lot of activities at the same age, and I let them make that decision.
Right.
Because what I'll talk about today is if they have a love for it, it's 10 times easier. And you can use it to almost discipline or reward them. They know they have something bigger to work for, and you can use that in a lot of different aspects of life with them.
That's definite. It keeps them somewhat distracted from all of the little cruddy stuff that goes on.
Absolutely.
Like, no, I need to focus on this because this is important. I like doing it.
And it's an outlet to get rid of that. We tell our girls, when you come to this field, get rid of everything. These girls are not judging you what happened in school that day or what happened at home. You pull it off here and you go out and work for 2 hours, all those distractions are gone. So again, we're always using these things as a learning tool. Yeah.
That's good, healthy stuff.
Yep.
So we're going to get into the actual discussion about that, but about what we can help dads with. But what coaches did you have in your life that influenced you that now you're, because I had good coaches and I had bad coaches. And some of the good ones, I'm like, man, I actually still stay in touch with my swim coach.
Yeah.
Okay.
You did a show with him.
Yeah, we did a show with him, and Brent is just like one of those guys is still there, And then I had coaches that is like, no, I don't ever want to be like that. So they actually taught me how not to be.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You take all of that stuff. So 2 huge ones. First of all, I got to say, when I look back and was thinking about coming in and talking to you, I've had a lot of good coaches.
Yeah.
I've had a lot of good experiences. I couldn't think of one where I'm like, oh my gosh. And where, again, I've seen people quit based on coaches.
Right.
Absolutely.
And I was trying to rack in my brain. And so I'm really lucky there. I had 2 amazing coaches that really, really changed my life, essentially. They're why I'm here today. They're why I was successful. First one being my father. So he was my coach from day one, just as I'm doing with my children. So I think that's where I get some of that. My dad was always there. No matter the sport, he was there. And again, another thing that he did, that's where I was aware my dad is the coach, and I'm nothing special to him when we are on that field. And I do that with my daughter. But that was a big thing to learn that I took out of there. Yeah. Because when you leave that environment, you're not, you know there's a boundary there. My dad is trying to make me strong. He's trying to make me a man. On
that, my older sons struggled with that because they had a hard time separating fun dad at home and dad who's going to hold me. And in fact, I have said on the show before, I probably erred on the side of being almost too strict on my own kids because I didn't ever want them to feel like they had a hand up.
Right.
Because of daddy being coach.
Yep.
And so my younger son even pointed out, I was glad you weren't coaching me.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Just because it was hard to separate when you got home.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we'll ask Cammie in a couple of years how that goes. But, if you ask me now, I would take every single second with my father. He's not around anymore, but I would take every single second with him as a coach. It made us I had a great father and a great family. And that's something to say, too. Sports was still so important. It had such an effect on me. I think we talk a lot about it. It saves kids sometimes in bad situations and whatnot. It can be just as powerful in a great situation.
Absolutely.
If handled the right way, like my father did, which is, no, nothing special here. You're going to do double the work almost of all the other guys. I'm going to hold you to a higher standard. And I do that with my daughter, and we talk about those kind of things, and I bring up my thought, hey, I had this.
Yeah.
You're not unique here. I had this with my father. Second one is a man that that made me grow up, that let me know that the world ain't easy, and I don't know if you know who I'm going to say already, but Rod Ballard.
Absolutely.
He was the one where when you go through it, you're like, oh my gosh, how can I survive this? And the day I left it, everything went, I understand everything the man was saying.
Yeah.
And every year that I came out after that and would run into something hard in my life and thought about, him saying, hey, if you did it right, you wouldn't be in that situation. All of it just came back to me. And I'm like, he was teaching me life. Yeah. And it was on a football field. Yeah. So those 2, to this day, on a weekly basis will come into my brain. And that's a lot of influence. I've been out now for 25, 30 years. And so those 2, phenomenal coaches. And both of them are a big reason I'm here today, that I do the stuff with I'm a football player that coaches soccer. Right. I coach them. I always tell everybody, I coach them like football players. East Central had a program, and you were a part of something and held to a standard, and that's what I do.
Yeah.
So 2 amazing coaches that that's why I'm here. That's why I'm here.
I think that's the important part too about organizations. The idea that you're not creating the organization to win a single game or to look good for the season. The idea that year in and year out, you're this little factory, if you will, of creating people of character, people of quality, people who learn. I mean, I say all the time, when I finished my high school swimming career, which I was by no means a great swimmer, you know, but I had that idea that I can do anything. I mean, the workouts I went through and the way Coach drilled on us, bring it on, was kind of just how I left that program. And like you said, I've carried that all the way through, because life is going to beat you up.
Oh, yeah.
You are going to be doing patty pukers in the sea of life and wonder how much longer. But learning that this too shall pass.
Absolutely.
Is what that coach instilled.
Did you say patty pukers?
Patty pukers, baby. Patty
Is
pukers.
that like the equivalent to like 2-a-days or something here?
No, patty puker. So you're at the one end of the pool.
Thanks.
Yeah,
I never heard
that. You two sissies couldn't handle patty
Is that like a term they used back in the 40s?
You sprint as hard as you can down the end of the pool. You hop out of the pool and you knock out 10 push-ups. Boom, back in the pool. Sprint down the other side. Hop out, 10 push-ups, and you go until he says no.
I did that this morning, Murrow. It's not that hard.
And then you woke up out of
your
dream.
I woke up, yeah.
Now, when you coached, did you bring that?
We did some patty, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. We did patty pukers, and you know, one, it's conditioning, but two, it's mental conditioning. And you see those kids who aren't really fast, who aren't all that strong, but they're like, I'm not quitting.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I'm not quitting.
That's the thing. Yeah.
And that's the kid you're like, oh, that kid's going to be all right. He's going to be all right. And those kids who have all the talent in the world, but they whine and complain about every one of them, that kid is going to struggle.
Right.
Yeah.
And that was me. In football, again, you see my stature, I had to double work everybody just to get a look.
Yeah.
And when you go through it, you're like, oh my gosh, this is so hard. And then you get out and life gets way easier for you because
your work ethic's been established.
You see those people that put it on a plate and it's like, oh, when they hit 19. You know what I mean?
Right.
So, so much I knew you could get all this out of sports. And so that's what I wanted to replicate.
It's one of the few areas when you talk about political correctness and you talk about all these things, sports, by the nature of them and the idea that you're coming onto a win and a loss, the cream has to rise to the top. You have to do your best, otherwise you don't succeed. And so it's one of the things that is somewhat trying to remain more pure and not tainted by, well, let's bend the rules so everybody succeeds. And so, and that's something too that as an organization we have to protect.
Sure.
So let's get into actually helping our parents,
helping
our dads. Okay,
absolutely.
We just, before we get too much farther, we want to thank Kramer's Beer House just for coming alongside of us. Man, we are due to go down there. We need to go down. I need a meal. We haven't been there in a little bit, so we need to get to Kramer's. Who else we got?
We also got Casey's Outdoor Solutions. Definitely go check them out for home decor and all your landscaping needs. Yeah,
he's getting ready to get busy here.
Coming
into the spring season.
'Tis the season.
I may be premature on that, but in my mind, I need to get to spring.
It's almost Groundhog's Day.
I know. Yeah.
Almost. I'm sure they're ready for it down there at Casey. I'm sure they're itching. They got the itch.
So let's talk more general right now. What is your thought on what kind of sports or activities you should get your kids in, and at what age?
Sure. This is probably the biggest question I get. What do we start and what do we do? There's so many options now. Again, when back in the younger days when you look pretty young, so you're probably the youngest one here, but
he's a kid.
We had 2 or 3
still
options.
In puberty.
You know what I mean? We didn't. There wasn't volleyball, right? Like there was football, baseball, basketball. There wasn't even soccer around when around here when we were growing up. So first off, 5 or 6, when you start to see that energy, when there's that extra energy that needs to be released, I'm really into that. You keep them cramped in the house all day and you keep them doing the same things, you're going to see behavioral things out of that.
Yeah.
So as I've went through the years, I've had a lot of parents go, oh my God, as soon as we got them playing sports and they were able to get that out.
My best ADHD medication.
Absolutely. So, again, you can do things at 4 and it's not crazy because, again, we're going to put this in perspective until they're maybe 10 or 11, maybe even 12. You really need to look for what they enjoy, what you can accomplish. Again, you don't want to be taking them 3 hours away. But again, 5 or 6, 7, expose them to things, talk to them. Again, we don't give kids credit enough for how smart they are when they're young, and that they have been exposed to a lot of these things. And so with Cammie and with Haley and with Aiden, it was, hey, we're going to try baseball. What do you want to try? I want to try baseball. I want to try soccer. I want to try dance, and I want to try gymnastics. Again, take your time. Don't throw them into all of this. Don't confuse them all. Let them get in and experience these things. Let them focus on them. You'll find out very quickly at that age if they like it or not. They don't hold anything back, so they'll tell you every time if they don't like it.
Yeah, their attitude will reflect it quickly.
And again, that's not what you want. I was able with my kids to, as we exposed them, some things didn't work. You know what I mean? We still had good experiences with that.
Yeah. Right.
My daughter played baseball first. She was the only girl on the team. She didn't like that. Right away, that made me change my mentality. She wants there's a lot of co-eds when they're young. I'm not a big fan of that. They have to do it because of numbers. Girls don't like to play with little boys. I mean, they've literally told me that. Like, no, we don't. They don't want to
get the elbow.
No, and there's so many different things that I see.
And again, that's a general statement.
Absolutely.
I mean, I've seen some girls thrive in certain
absolutely.
units, but by and large, I will say my daughter would have no interest in it.
Absolutely. And so she was like, yeah, I like it, but I really want to play with a bunch of girls. Again, I'm having this conversation with my 5 or 6 year old. So then we found soccer and picked that out and boom. But, again, exposing them to activities doesn't have to be sports. Again, me and my son, we played a lot of sports, but me and him are outdoor. We kayak. We go to the lake. That's us. I put the same amount of time in almost as I do with sports with him doing that. So again, it's whatever it is, but expose him to a lot of things. Don't force. I've had many a force. And I've, again, gone to the kids later in life and been like, "Do you want?" And they say, "I haven't wanted to play for the last 5 years. I'm doing it for my parents." So really make it about them. Let them pick what they like, and then I think we'll get into how many sports and what that. But again, if they enjoy it, like we talked about in the beginning of the show, it's going to be easier to get them to go. It's going to be easier to use that at home. Hey, you got this tomorrow. Let's make sure our room's cleaned up and we're going into bed. You find that right situation, it can be really good for them when they're young, without even getting into the crazy parts of it. Just, hey, that baseball or football, hey, you got responsibilities.
Yeah, I've found that it's, and I recognize this with our older sons. It's not about the sport. It's not at all. It's about the interaction. It's about the energy release. Both my boys, and this is no offense to anybody that's in the baseball world, but I had both my boys, because this is what everybody was doing, play t-ball. That was ridiculous. It was ridiculous for us because, one, I had not crazy energetic boys, but boys that had that energy, and we go in there and they're setting the ball on the tee, and all these little knucklehead kids are out there kicking dandelions and getting stung by bees. And they're wondering why. And that fall, so we're talking about when they're 4 and 5 years old, they have the chance to play soccer, and I have no background in soccer. And I'm like, soccer? What do you mean?
That's how I was.
And all of a sudden, I'm seeing them out there, and they're chasing the ball. They're running all over. And I'm like, yeah, this is a whole lot better. This is a whole lot better, because we were trying to teach a skill. What took an hour and a half practice, I could have taught my kid in 5 minutes in my front yard at home as far as the baseball skill. So it's not about the sport. It's really about the energy and just the socialization.
Absolutely.
And just being part of something.
Another aspect of it, we had talked when we were talking about this, is the best friend I have to this day, I went my first t-ball practice, he was shortstop, I was a second baseman. That's how I met him. So I think we may get into that later, but look for something local. Look for something that has a lot of kids their age. It's going to have a big influence with their friends, and again, that first coach that they get exposed to, it's going to have a big impact. So that's why I always say, don't look for, I'm going to go put my kid on this team when they're that age. Keep it local. Keep it easy. Let them have some friends on there, and don't get crazy. It'll get crazy on its own if your kid loves the sport. So let it get that way on its own. Go in and look for, again, we keep talking about a happy situation for them. Yeah. At that age, we want them smiling. You know what I mean? We want them having a little bit of exercise and smiling and maybe getting a good coach. At that age, you can't have that big of an influence on them, but maybe getting a coach that cares about them to give them a little bit of that too. That's your perfect scenario.
The biggest influence is that they are attracted enough that they want to go back to the next practice.
Absolutely. Yeah. They want to get out of the house.
I like Coach so-and-so. Look, are we going to practice? Yeah.
Absolutely.
That's awesome.
Get them out of the house. I mean, and get them all, again, we were out of the house when we were young automatically. Right. Now we got to pull them out. Like you have young kids, right?
Yeah.
Man, it's going to be tough with all those distractions now, and those go away. Mm-hmm. And
so to that point, then, so where do you find, with your experience doing everything that you do with the soccer, like where do you find that balance of the parent pushing the kid out of the house, getting involved, but also kind of finding that balance of, am I pushing them too hard?
Right.
Because I know for me, my 7-year-old, basketball is one of my favorite sports.
Right.
So I wanted her just to try it out, and it was a nightmare. It was awful. I mean, she would run up and down the court crying. So I'm like, all right, we're done with basketball. Right. So it's like, I want her to experience things. I want to push her into doing, try some different stuff out. But then when do you see, in your experience of like reining that parent back in, like, well, this maybe isn't the best option for that kid, or do you even see that as a person in your leadership position as a role that you should be taking?
Absolutely, it comes up a lot, and more in the older girls. So when you're younger, you're gonna kind of handle that. Yeah. You're gonna see it when you come home. It's gonna be in the car, like you said. It's gonna be you're gonna be looking at different things on their face and go, "Is this right for them? Is this what they should be doing?" But as they get older, and I've had my same 16 girls, I think, for 8 years. They've essentially all stayed on my team.
Wow.
And I have stories that the team doesn't know about of going to players as they've gotten older and saying, do you want to do this? Do you want me to help you get off of this team?
Yeah. Yeah. Wow.
And that's as a coach but I know them now. I can see it in their eyes. I can go by their body language. They were a star for me for years, and now I see them coming out again with that sad face. And I still, at this age, I have high school girls that I coach. I want them to enjoy this.
Yeah.
I want them to enjoy being around. So I literally took girls aside away from their parents and said, you want me to get you out of this? And one did 3 years ago. One's like, I don't.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And so I handled that a different way. But, as they get older, they're gonna tell you. If you know them and you're an involved coach, or if you're an involved parent, you're gonna see it, you're gonna feel it. Yeah. And when it gets to that needs to be addressed right away. When the check, now I'll work with them. Hey, right. I've also had, besides girls going, I don't want to play anymore, I've had girls that are going through stuff as they hit freshman year was tough on them.
Yeah. And
so they back away. And so first thing I do is come in as a coach, hey, let's talk, let's work.
What's going on?
Most of them have been able to come back when we say, hey, let's push soccer to the side a little bit. Again, it's been such a part of their lives. Let's put it to the side and let you focus on these things. And when I tell them to do that, okay.
Right.
And then they come back strong.
Yeah.
So it's communicate. You got to be a good coach. So I can't guarantee that. I care about these things and know what a big deal they can be. And again, I've brought them from essentially youth 7-year-olds through high school. So they're all my daughters. I care that much. But I would take that, I think, to anybody in my club and to that coach and just said, it's about that kid.
Yeah. Otherwise, nobody wins.
Nobody wins.
So we talked about the young age of start, but one of the topics that, just because I'm a personal trainer and I read up on this stuff all the time, and that, what is your take on when a kid should start to specialize? Like, in other words, we started them in all these different sports, but all of a sudden, soccer is going to be your deal.
Yep.
What's your take on that, and just how do you balance that?
Absolutely. A lot of it's going to go back to the kid and communication. That's going to be you're going to see that as a similar theme for a lot of my answers. That kid is going to tell you. I'm a big proponent of multiple sports. With my girls on my team, we find a way to do that. If you have phenomenal players in soccer, they're probably going to be phenomenal in another sport.
Yeah. Especially
with girls like that, females in high school, they'll, there's kind of that crew. It's not specialized as much. So you're gonna deal with them. You're gonna deal with their timing. When they tell you, if you keep saying, "Oh, let's play this sport," even as they hit 8, 9, 10. So I have the girl on my team that's already made the Olympic team, and she already has the scholarship. We couldn't get her to do anything else. If we called off practice, she went up and had practice anyway.
Yeah.
So that was a very specialized situation where no matter what we exposed that person to, they wanted to play soccer. And that's, again, when I look at that, it's where they put their time, where they put their focus. Right. Is it giving back to them? Is it building their character? So if you're not the parent pushing them into one sport, right, and they decide, man, Dad, I just don't like baseball and football, and I just want to play basketball. It's what I love. It's what I'm going to go out and do in the driveway right now. If we're not playing, let them go. You know what I mean? Yeah. In a smart way. If there's mostly I get parents coming going, what gives? I got 3. He wants to play all 3. We don't think we can do that. And again, I'm not going to be the answer for you. I'm going to tell you how to think about it as a family. Right. But I'm not going to tell you. You work it out. What are their goals? What do they want to do? What coaches are giving you, the best experience? So it's all of it. Communicating with your child. Right. Reading what they're doing. Yeah. And again, having where the discipline part comes in, where you have to make that decision. I'm going to continue playing all 3. You're a 7th grader now. Academics are getting a lot crazier. You got to do a lot more stuff with the family. You're not. Right. So you pick the 2 you want to do. What our rule was in our house was so there's the rec world of sports now, and there's a select world. Right. Yeah. Right. Again, when we were young, there wasn't that select world.
There was just the world.
It was you played locally, and there was a little bit of knothole, but they're going to get pulled into that specialized world right away, and that's where the discipline has to come in. And we say you can do one select sport, and you could do something rec. You can never do 2 select. That was and again, select for my daughter, my oldest one was a big time dancer, and that counted as you're a select. You're not going down and just doing dances, stuff like that. She was going out, she's going all over. So my rule, even when they were 5th or 6th grade, was you could have one big focus sport and then do another sport as well, but you can't have the 2.
So, Keith, one of the things that I'd like to just touch on, as we talk about specialization and that kind of thing, is the importance of not specializing too early from a physiological perspective. With my background and understanding of physiology, I have been part of the problem and understanding the value of not specializing. With swimming, we would have year-round swimmers. And when you think about swimming, which I love the sport, but when you think about it, it's just so repetitive, and it doesn't teach a lot of different sort of coordination skills. Right. Once I learned the front crawl, it is what it is, right? Whereas other sports like baseball or soccer, the body is in different planes of motion, using different structure and function to get the job done. And so if I continue to repeat, the body will eventually start to basically fall down and break down, and then I have these chronic injuries. Right. And not to mention the whole fatigue of the mind. Right. I just get burned out. I've been looking at the bottom of the pool for 9-10 months, and it's just not very exciting. Right. Right. So the research is very loud on this, that we should not be specializing at a young age with our kiddos, and not even, till we get into the high school years where we start. And even then, that we specialize, but we take an active time where we do something different. Absolutely. Like maybe it's 2 or 3 months where we're like, no, we're going to go play pickup basketball or something like that. Something totally very different than what you do.
So agree with all of that. A big proponent of multi-sports and multi-activities. A couple things is, with my work with a lot of colleges, we find out that the body can essentially max out a muscle group or a sport for about 9 months. And then, as you said, you're going back down. So year-round sports, science tells us, is not good for us.
Right. We break down.
Focus, absolutely. You're going to break down, which is going to lead to injuries, which is going to lead to mental fatigue. I mean, it's just everybody should take that break. again, our body and our kids are going to tell us that. There are also ways. I obviously coach females, and we've put a lot of look and thought around their muscle groups. It's a whole females on themselves as they're going through their evolution process, and how, hips and thighs, and there are specialized things you can do to make them even better when they hit high school, and smart things to do.
Yeah.
So big proponent of that. Again, just changing it up. As a coach, what can you do? You can change your routine knowing that as well. As you said, soccer, you are doing a lot of stuff, but again, you're using the same group. It's still the same problem of swimming that, you're not using your back muscles as much. So you can, as a good coach, say, I need to dictate. We're gonna strengthen with our warm-ups or our stretching. We're gonna use those groups or little homework we can send to them. Huge deal for boys and girls. And again, stopping those injuries later on in life. A lot of them start when they're young. And you don't feel it, you don't see it because you're strong and you're elastic. And, but boom, it hits and it goes back to some overworkage when you're young.
Yeah. Good point for all of our parents to hear out there. What is your take on, I've got a kiddo in sport. He seems to show an interest to that. What's the best advice on how to pick a good team or a coach?
Yeah. Right. Absolutely.
To me, that's more important sometimes than just the activity they're playing. I want to know who's coaching my kid.
And I would put that, from what I've seen, at last on a lot of parents' lists. And it breaks my heart. A lot of that is because of this select world, again, where they're essentially going with a big group. You're going and they're going to put you, whether it's football or soccer, they're going to put you on a team, and they're going to change that coach a lot. And we're not getting into a lot. That's why I started this club over here. My daughter was in that program, and I'm like, wait, you're going to switch up coaches every year? And this is when she was 6 or 7. It's important, that role model. You're going to switch up coaches and players every year. I'm like, we wouldn't do this in football.
Right.
Somebody go to somebody's house and start a war. You're going to switch my boy? He's going to be on another team?
Yeah.
But in these other sports, we take it like it's no big deal.
Yeah.
So your first coach can have a huge impact on if your child will play sport. If he has a really bad experience, they may never play sports again. That's how important it is as a parent.
Right.
To put a little extra time in. What I said to you earlier was I look local, because get them in there with their friends, or they'll make their friends there. Right. And we want them to be local. We want it to be kids they're going to go to school with and can start these relationships with. If there's any way you can talk to people and find out the character of that coach and what's important to them, again, when they're young, most of the time it's going to be a dad that says, I'm going to do it. And that's what I did. The only reason I'm here is because no one said that they would coach that team. So I'm like, all right, I'll read some books. And, again, now it dominates my life. I have nightmares about me not walking onto that field because my whole life has changed for the better, making that decision. This was what I was meant to do, is to work with kids and my kids. And so as much as you can, look for that character. I've had my girls for 8 years. I've done the math. Besides their fathers, I'm by far the #1 male in their life.
Wow. Yeah.
They're spending hundreds of hours a year with me. You know what I mean? If not 1,000, and add that over 8 years, that's a big deal. If I was a jerk and if I had poor character, man, it would go out onto these girls. But these girls are disciplined. They're kind. They give back to their communities.
Yeah.
They give back to their church. They give back to their families. So as you go, one thing, again, you're looking for somebody, and it's going to be usually a great dad that's just, again, at that age, I want them to have a great experience. I want a nice dad. I don't want the best football coach, the best. As you evolve and as they get older, look for those characteristics that are important to you as a parent. You'll be able to find it by then and be able to talk to people. Yeah. That's when it matters a lot. You want them having a good time when they're young. When you're starting to put a little bit more travel and money into it, which is okay. You know what I mean? Again, if it's a good thing that your kids are doing, that's when you really need to make sure that those assistant coaches and even those players around them at that age, because a big influence is going to come from them from activities or sports. So you want the best people around them.
Yeah.
You had kind of started talking about that, Keith. It's kind of moving forward. Man, I'm a super competitive guy, and winning to me is a big deal. and trying to find that balance, especially with my girls. I have 2 young girls, you know, and if they get involved in sports or regardless, finding that success. You can label wins and losses versus success and not success. So what do you talk to your parents, or how do you talk to the girls you coach about, winning is a big deal, but also, in those successes, in those wins, trying to build character.
Absolutely.
And how do you find that balance? Because I know for me, it's a struggle, because to me, winning is huge. I don't know anybody who, is good at something that doesn't want to win at it.
Right.
And so trying to find that balance, how do you kind of, just where you're talking about the character, the traits, teaching the girls that you coach, winning is important, but like in those successes, let's build character. Like, how do you find that balance?
Absolutely. I'm going to hit the first part of your question, because I was just like you. I was extremely competitive. And when I got into youth sports, I had to quickly say, am I feeling that? And again, you'll hear people say, oh, that dad, he's chasing that trophy. Right. He's still living in high school. I dealt with that. Because, again, I was all in. But so was my dad. You know what I mean? Right. But I'm like, man, what am I feeding as I've evolved and I've gotten older? What I was really putting in me was that the sport and the camaraderie and it wasn't the win, it was the experience for me. As I got older and got to coach my own team, I realized it was all that. It wasn't Friday night in the W, which is nice. Yeah. That Friday, I went to Central. We carried it on our chest, man. We're the big guys around here, and so it was important, and you and I talked. It gets more, and you can put a little bit more seriousness and focus in on it when you get to high school. But so as a parent, you got to, and I deal with parents all the time with that, and I've had that discussion of, again, it's the coach. I'm the boss here. You're not even talking to them on my sideline. So I set up my parents for success, because I lay out as a coach. And they all don't do this, but I lay out those expectations and I control my team. Yeah. The other part of it is, and I think you know a little bit about my team, but I mean, my team loses like 1 game a year. Like they've won. They are a phenomenal team. They've won 300 or 400 games. Let me tell you something. We've never told them to win, ever. We instill about discipline and hard work, and we say to them, if you do these things, you can have an expectation to win.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
If you haven't done those things, don't even expect that. So it's how we position it to them. And I tell you, before every game, my other coach, Chris Hopper, will tell them every game, I don't care if you win or lose. He's been saying that to them for 8 years. Yeah. And again, we win 98% of our games. Yeah. But we never. People think we never have. We never have. You put the work in, W's come. You know, if you do things the right way, and a team's a team, that's how it happens.
Yeah, I have, the experience of youth coaches that are all about the record and all about the number of points scored. And we actually, had that experience, and it was like, what a shame. What a shame. I get that at high school. I get that.
Right.
But when you're talking about developmentally preparing and building kids, I love that we see a W. I love it.
Right.
But at the end of the day, if all of a sudden I'm screening kids out in 4th and 5th grade because of W's and L's, that's not a coach that I want my child with.
Right.
If my coach is worried about how many points we're going to score this game or not allow to be scored, and we're talking about 5th graders, that coach is in the wrong place in my mind, for developmentally preparing kids.
Right. Well, I think that's where the dad steps in. And if you do have a coach, if your kids are part of a sport that has a coach that has that mindset, I think as a parent, that's where we can step in. And yes, you did lose this game, and yes, your coach came down on you, but that gives the dad the opportunity to step in there and build that kid up and be like, hey, yes, winning is important. Obviously, again, everything in balance, but here's the things you did well. Mom and Daddy still love you at the end of the day. We're still proud that you're putting forth effort, and I think that's a great opportunity if your kids are in a situation that are on a team that has that coach that is, comes down on them because they do lose. Having a parent be able to step in and kind of provide that positive feedback.
Yeah, it's a tough one. I mean, just because if we weren't concerned about wins and losses, we really wouldn't be involved in the sports to begin with.
Right.
We want to win, you know, and you want your kids to win. Every kid enjoys the celebration of the win. But, you know, when you're talking about developing these kids, I look at kids, you know, I look at my my second youngest or my second oldest son. We have all kinds of tears in our family
absolutely.
about
I know
ages.
them all. Yeah.
And, you know, he didn't develop physically very big until his junior year. So he was one of the smallest guys in school his freshman year, and he was done with football. And all of a sudden his junior year, I mean, he's a stud. He's a big boy. And I'm like, Zach, what do you think, man? You go back out for football? No. I'm just, and again, I'm okay with that completely. Right. But it was a lot of that coming through and just always he wasn't getting the touches on the ball. He wasn't getting the experiences. So he just fell out of it.
Right.
And again, that's just part of it. And that's no coach's fault as much as it's just like a lot of kids develop at different rates. So just because you see a star that's in the 5th grade, that doesn't mean he's going to be a star when he's in the 12th grade.
It's funny. I tell coaches who have these younger teams, and they'll be like, 9-year-olds, and they'll be like, oh, here's my 2 best and here's my 2 worst. And I'll say, I guarantee you this right now. In 2 years, one of the 2 that you put in the bottom will be up top. One of the ones that was up top will be in the bottom.
Right.
So to your point, open it up. And parents, don't pay your kids for goals.
Oh,
God. We could do a whole
show.
We could do a whole show.
Oh, here's $1.
And on the way home in the car, just say I enjoyed it. And if they want to talk, but don't. So you were bringing that up, and I was going to say something. Don't run over a game with them after a game.
Yeah.
Let them get in the car. Let them come down. And this has been me working with athletes saying, when I get in that car, so I know this happens a lot. Whether it's good but whether it's just a mom going, no, this play, right. Not even going down on you. Let them come down. If they bring it up, hey, this, other than that, be like, man, I really enjoyed that. That's still to this day, me as the coach, when I get off, Cammie's in the back, we're driving home from Indy, man, I really enjoyed watching you play today. Yeah. First thing I say to her, I'm not a coach right then.
Right.
So those don't pay your kids. That's a bad mental thing to set them up for. And when any practice or game is over, give them some time and let them relax.
Oh, man. That is tough. I've been in that
position
as a parent, because it's all fresh in everybody's mind. So what about this play here? Yeah. No, just shut your hole. Allow the emotions to drain out of it.
Yep.
And then especially if they ask.
Reading the kid, letting the kid decide when you start to discuss.
Absolutely. Yeah. Now, again, hey, Dad, did you see that? Then, jump in with them. Yeah, absolutely. I saw that, buddy. Great job. Yeah. You know what I mean? But if they're not, they're going to be silent back there, and you're going to crush them. And again, you're going to stop them from playing sport. I've seen phenoms driven out of sports by dads and moms. There are moms out. It's just a dad. There are moms out there that are just tough as these dads. And just as loud. So
yeah. Wow, what a good point. So that kind of leads me to a question of, how do you as a coach handle the overzealous parent? The parent who you constantly hear them on the sideline. They're coaching from the sideline. They're yelling at the sideline. Then when the kid gets in the car, they're going to be preaching and yelling. How do you handle that actual parent?
So I've had parents call me out during the game from a sideline. Cheek. I mean, again, I've seen the full gamut. My parents on my team. Really, I saw that get out of hand when we were young. And I went with my other coaches. And again, it was how we handle ourselves. And we're going to set up a set of rules. We're going to follow those rules. We're going to be very clear to our parents, and we're going to show them we're going to tell them what's going to happen.
Yeah.
If this doesn't happen, and we're going to let it know. I got to quit doing that. We're going to let them know how it affects their child.
Yeah.
So I went, and we had some parents yelling. We had some parents talking to refs, all this kind of stuff. And I went and I said, again, this was years ago. 0 tolerance for that now.
Having a parent meeting and doing this?
Absolutely. Absolutely. After I saw it, I didn't think I had to do that. We were young, and again, I was really focused on the kids. That it's 0 tolerance, that I'm going to hold myself to that standard. Me and my coach, we don't yell at the refs. Like, it is worth nothing.
Right. What a great message right there.
It's never saw a ref in my life change a call. The coach, and I'm a ref. I've never changed one because a coach, you know what I mean? So we're very respectful. So I hold myself to that standard. And those parents know. And now they manage each other. You know, if one of them, because again, emotion's going to happen.
Right.
A parent's going to yell that word when their daughter goes down. They're going to yell a word when they get that goal. And I get that. I want that emotion. I tell them, you cheer all day long. Don't tell them how to play.
Right.
Because sometimes they may be doing something on purpose for me, you know. And don't talk to anybody else. Don't talk to the other team. Don't talk to. So back to my point, those parents will be like, hey, you know, let's say my wife Diana yells, "Hey Diana, hey, Keith's gonna get on you." So it's almost you know, funny now, but I did it when we were young, and I stuck with it. And again, I displayed that. I was a little bit of a yeller coach when I was young. Maybe a little Rod Ballard came out of me on that one. Sorry, Rod, I love you, man. But I very quickly found out, especially with coaching females, that I needed to kill that. So you evolve as a coach too. I didn't come in knowing all this stuff, but I had my eyes open, and I always said, I'm going to keep doing better. So many coaches you see that they just stay the same way.
Wow, what a great point. I mean, how you handle yourself. You know, we have a rule in our house. I've said it on the show before, the referee rule, and that is you don't ever talk bad about the referee because he's going to screw up occasionally against you. But just as often, he's going to screw up, and it's going to benefit you.
Absolutely.
And you don't ever praise him then.
Zero.
No.
You don't even acknowledge it most times.
Yeah. And so you, when my kids come home, if I hear them say one cross word about the referee, boom, you're done. You're done.
Yep.
You don't. It's just because it's like you said, the standard. What can you do? Child of mine, what can you do to do better out on the field or court or whatever?
And if they started with refs, you're going to hear it about teachers as they get old. Like, again, stop it all, set them up and be. And again, I have the talk. You're going to have bosses you don't like. You're going to have teachers you don't like it. And we all survive. We all go on. So let's start doing that now as you're young.
Yeah, good stuff there. So I want to talk a little bit about, especially as our kids get older, and maybe start to show a greater ability and interest. As a coach, how do you, and I'll speak from a teacher perspective. You know, when I taught science and when I first started teaching science, I was into science. And you had this idea that every kid should be into science like you are, you know? You mean you didn't go home and study the DNA, blah, 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 blah? No, I didn't think about your class since the last time I was in here.
Osmosis, a lot of osmosis talk.
Oh, man.
And I'm like, oh, yeah, that's good. That's good stuff.
High to low, right?
Yeah. So what kind of boundaries do you put on yourself, and then do you preach to your teams when it comes to how much money should parents spend? How much time? How much practice time? How, you know, to keep things in perspective so that the balance doesn't get out of whack. How do you let your teams know, you know, when is too much too much?
Right. Absolutely. And again, I'm in the thick of that right now with, again, where my team is freshmen and sophomores. So colleges are coming and knocking. There's excitement. There's other opportunities for them as you get older. There's different places that they can go play and whatnot. A lot of it has to do with family by family. What are those resources that you can put in? I mean, I got players and families that'll go sleep in a car to go play. You know what I mean? If they can't afford that hotel, they'll go sleep in a car. And at that age, as you get older, you know, I think I have a lot more influence on that when they're younger, and I can say, hey, you know, but as they get older and they're making those decisions with a almost adult, that's really on them. And it's where you want to take the girl on my team, Lexi Watkins, that has accomplished so many things. You had to go out and do that. You're not going to get all of that around here. You got to hit the road. Without my team, you got to go to camps. You got to go to, you know, if I saw she also gets phenomenal grades. So there are a lot of things I think you can measure. Again, I'm not going to be able to answer that question good because some people have a ton of money to put in that. Some don't. Some have extra time. Some have parents that they couldn't even do it if they wanted to. what else is it affecting in their lives?
Right.
When anybody that comes to me, that talks about this, first thing I'll say is, how's their grades? How's their friends?
Yeah.
You know, are you seeing that? If those are bad, we're going to stop talking about you going an extra 4 hours a week to play soccer, because we got some bigger things. And again, as a coach, I always check on grades. I'm always talking to parents. If you have a grade issue or discipline, bring it to me.
Yeah.
Let me handle it here. I'm not going to get angry with them, but they're going to know that it's a problem.
Yeah. Right.
And I said that when they were even young. Bring that to me. As they get older, again, if it's not, and they have a dream, you know, again, she is going to get that. She's got the scholarship. That's where her life is going to go. I don't have a problem with her because, again, she's getting straight A's as well. My daughter as well. As long as those grades are up, and again, I know that she's socially, I'm going to allow her those activities to. So you as a parent, and you got to know your child.
Yeah.
At that age. So probably not the best answer.
No,
but it's one that opens up because again, you're dealing with a young adult at that point.
Right.
Well, I think to your point about, you know, coming when that activity, that sport is becoming overwhelming in your family, and it's interrupting your grades and your friendships and your family and, you know, your relationships. I think when that becomes, you know, we talk all the time about, you know, stuff comes in your life that becomes your God.
Yeah.
Your thing that you idolize and you worship. That's when it becomes that big issue, and I think that's kind of what I was hearing from you.
And as a dad and a coach, I want to, and we talked about this, priorities in life. You know what I mean?
Right.
Again, that you have God, you have family, you have the sport, you have school, you have social. You know what I mean? Like, and we keep adding things to that, unfortunately, and there's going to be more. Again, when we were younger, there were less things possible.
Sure.
Right.
So it's just something we're always dealing with. It's knowing your kid. Again, my kids are very social. So that's not an area that I have to work in. But if I had that would be, it's priorities of that child.
Right.
That's why when they're young and as you're figuring out your kids and their personalities are coming out, that's how you're going to make those decisions. But I think one thing we can say is be that parent, own it. Yeah. Know when to come in as a parent. You still control that. Yeah. When things get crazy and they're doing too much, you have to be smart enough as a parent. A lot of parents will let it go on.
Yep.
Yeah. You got to stop and be like, dude, if your grades are not acceptable, you're not doing this, you're not seeing your friends, you know, we're going to have to make some changes. And the sport is where the change is going to have to be made.
I think that's I've said many times on this show and our other show, the idea that as a parent, don't read just one parenting book on how you're going to parent your kid, because your kid's different. Like you said, my kid might be socially fired up, ready to roll.
Right.
And my other kid might be totally shy, withdrawn, and everything. You have to see what the need of your child is, and you have to tend to that. I would say, because you mentioned it, and Kyle, you kind of brought it up, one of the challenges that we see, I mean, Strong Dad's podcast is all about being faith-based, and seeing how, the underlying foundation of our family, for the dads that we're working for here, is to have an ultimate authority in our life, to have God in our life. I mean, God gave us the ability to coach, to teach, to play these sports. You didn't create your ability to play sports.
Sir.
And I think that's very humbling. Oh, you mean I'm not great because I am great? No, you're great because God gave you that gift. And so the idea of keeping perspective and giving that praise to God, and keeping, Keith, like I do, I mean, shoot, half the tournaments are on Sundays, or practices are on Sundays, and that's used to be that day where we used to try to go to church, and the next thing you know, the kid is about the kid in a sport, and they think they've created their greatness because they don't even know who God is.
Right.
Yeah.
And giving credit. I listened to a podcast the other day, and this guy was talking about what essentially were all of his accomplishments, but he never said, I've done this, I've done. He always said we. And the guy who was interviewing him said, like, I know you and I know what you're doing, and you're kind of a one-man team. Why do you keep saying we? And he started crying. It's an older man. He's dying of cancer, so he very emotional in the interview. And he said, I have done nothing on my own. Everything I have is only through God. And so I can't even say the word And then he start crying. Anymore.
Oh yeah.
Which just made me go, man, that is such an understanding of where our whole conversation comes from. But you don't even have sports if you don't understand where all of this comes from. And so we've made it a very important part in our, we have a daughter who plays some club soccer and stuff, and it's on Sunday, but she does the afternoon practices. It's just like, well, if it's a Sunday morning when we go to church, or if we can't find church that goes around it,
right?
We're not going to let sport be her God,
right?
Yeah.
Right.
And that's become hard to do, because we live in a fairly secular world.
Yep.
You have coaches and people who they don't even acknowledge the presence of God.
It's not that hard to find that sport or activity that will replace it. I mean, it's pretty.
Right.
It's right there. You can grab it at any time.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's all that perspective.
Yep.
None of us created ourselves.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's where we really get fooled. And that's why it kind of leads me to that whole idea, like, and you've seen this too, Keith, that idea that when I look back at all of my coaching, the kids that were my toughest kids to coach were the individual kids, the kids that were filled with talent, filled with just ability, and they wanted the spotlight on them all the time.
Yep.
They were all about, give me the ball or let me, and you're like, you don't get it, kid.
Right.
Yeah.
You don't get it. So how do you coach like that kid who's that natural star? And everybody knows they are. That's not the point. But to keep them off of themselves. They didn't create themselves.
Right.
How do you humble that kid to be the player and to give the acknowledgement that you didn't create you?
Yep.
How do you handle that?
And I have on my team, I'm fortunate enough that I have 3 or 4 players that have been on a national level and have played that way. And you would think that they were but when they were young, again, it's a coach. We didn't allow it. We talked about, before that star happened, she was hearing it's never going to be about a star. It's always going to be a team game. You're not going to do anything on your own. So, again, this girl goes up to Indy and all these people, and she's had all these articles. When she's on my team, she's not treated different. She's not. And again, I have multiple players like that. She doesn't treat anybody else different. It's about how you handle them, how you set them up mentally. She's very humble. I think because we never put her on that pedestal as soon as she jumped on it.
Right.
Their ability is going to put them on that pedestal. We can't even stop that. We can't hold it down.
Right.
They're a great kid. People are going to notice, and they're going to jump up there on that table. It's somebody very quickly bringing them down and talking to them.
Right.
And so you got to be there. If somebody knows how to do that, I think you would do that and you would see it. There's no special sauce. It's just how you handle them and repetitiveness of that message.
Yeah.
Nothing's going to happen the first time you tell them.
No.
And again, if you start it with that kid when he's 15 years old, it's over. You're not going to fix that kid when he's 15.
Yeah.
She now, from what we've done when she's young, she will be humble her entire life of that because that's the way she learned. So coaches and parents
need to
is
hear
how
that.
you do that.
Yeah. And like you said, when they're 15, I've had athletes that come when I would get them, they'd be 14 or 15 year in the high school, and you can see, man, their parent has put them on the God pedestal.
Yep.
There's very little chance for this kid.
Absolutely.
And here, without ever getting into names, I can follow their life. I've been out of that coaching long enough now. I can see the train wrecks.
Yep.
I can see the train wrecks in their marriages, and it's just because they've not been able to remove themselves from the pedestal of their godlike.
Absolutely.
And it's like, oh, come on. That was a parenting problem.
Yep.
Back 20 years ago.
Absolutely. You can see it. And some you can't, and you've probably had it too, some you can't save. Again, like even if you do the right things as a coach, like you said, there's that certain parent or that certain situation where you're limited to what you can do. I mean, I'd give an arm for anybody on my team, but there are limitations, with how you can affect them, and you just be the best role model you can. And again, hope that, you can have a bad coach and a good parent at home can still stop that.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's multiple ways that
Right.
these kids aren't reliant on one person.
Well, yeah, that's right. That's
and
a
so
great
there's
point,
a lot of people that are making bad decisions if a kid
Right.
ends up that way.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's the best way to say it.
Right.
You know.
Well, man, what a great conversation. We're going to take and break the show into 2 parts because you know.
Did we talk a long time here?
We did. We talked a bit, but
it was a good conversation.
This is a conversation, and this is the kind of conversation we like to have. This is just a bunch of guys sitting around, dads sitting around, really trying to, you know, we solve all the problems of the world, but really being specific about the sport world, the activity world, and what our role is as dads. One of the things that we know just from all of the research that we do with dads is, dads, you carry a heavy, heavy influence in your kids' life.
Big time.
And how you go goes the family. How you go goes the child. And if you handle this well, your activities, your sports, you handle it well, chances are it's going to bear good fruit.
Yeah.
If you don't, if you're that knucklehead that we've been talking about in different ways, your kid's going to follow you. I mean, you know, that's what you're the lead. So this has been a great conversation, Keith. I thank you for your insight and your input on that.
One other question that I think is going to have a big impact here that I saw that I want you to ask me.
Okay.
How do I measure success?
Yes.
As a coach for everything that I've done?
Yeah.
And
it must be money because, you know.
It is. It is. My helicopter here, you had to pick me up. People ask me that question all the time. And I think I have a rare answer, and it's the honest to God's truth. Keith, how are you going to, all this, and you got girls going here, and you got girls doing this, how are you going to measure it? And I said, if I get invited to their wedding, I did my job.
Wow. Yeah.
And again, nothing to do with wins and losses there, nothing to do with championships. If I had that big of an impact, because I say I'm going to deliver them for life. I'm not delivering them for soccer. If I get invited to all those girls' weddings, I was successful as a coach.
Yeah.
So it's going to take a while, hopefully way long until they're getting married.
Yeah.
But that's how I'm going to measure it. And so maybe that process of that's how I'm going to measure myself later leads me to a lot of the things that I do now.
I think that's such a great point. Just the idea that I still have a relationship with my coach, you know, and I still have contact with guys that I coached in swimming and track and girls that I coached in those sports. Just whether it's through Facebook or some other social media or you run into them. I always feel bad, like if I'm not like totally up on their life, you know, because you're like, oh man, what have you been up to?
Yep.
And one thing I always said, even as a teacher, at the end of the day, if I see you 20 years out, and I was your science teacher, I'm not, and I see you at the grocery store, I'm not going to say, hey, you know, how's your DNA doing? I'm going to be like, how are you?
How you doing?
How are you, man? How's life rolling with you? Because investing in how they are is so much more than soccer or swimming or track or basketball.
I think even our relationship. Again, you were a positive, you know, we were making fun of it, but I saw you as a positive person. I saw your energy, and I wanted, that's something I wanted. And as we've seen each other in different stages over our lives, we connected, I think, even more.
Right.
Because of what you did when I was 15. You know what I mean? So it's so important what we're doing. It can be such a game, a life changer.
Yeah.
When you have
for the good or the bad.
Absolutely.
I mean, for the good and the bad.
Yeah.
And I think that's part of the idea of strong dads. I mean, man, you come in contact with tens of thousands of people in your lifetime. And which of those individuals, like you were saying, getting invited, you know, the 200 or 300 people that get to come to a wedding, those are the people that care the most about you. Like, we have such an opportunity as men, as strong dads, to have a huge, huge positive or negative impact, not only on our kids' life, but on their kids' friends. You know, because you're gonna come in contact with kids' friends.
Oh gosh,
that don't have the dad, that don't have the support, the consistency that they have. You know, that you can provide. And not saying you got to step in there and be that dad figure to them, but you can be a positive role model, and you can radically change the life and the outcome of a kid's life. So
yourself. We're let's not do this. I'd lost my, and I know you were wrapping it up, but I'd lost my dad 4 years before I got into coaching, and I went empty, and this brought me it again, not from a competitive stand. It filled a hole, and it gave me a direction that it's all about my kids, my family, God, and I'm here to give back now.
Right.
I'm not here to make money and have this now, and my whole priorities change.
Yeah.
Because of this.
Yeah, back to service and pouring into other people.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's the most rewarding thing. As you get older, I don't need that money. I don't need anything. Every day, these kids fill me with what I need.
Yeah.
Of, you know, just being a good role model for them. So,
Keith, I want to thank you for your time.
Absolutely.
I love touching base with you again. Good stuff. And Kyle, you've got so much to look forward to.
Oh, you're just at the beginning of this wonderful
I can see
journey.
you right now hopping in the minivan. Why did you do that? Barking at your poor little girls. You got tears coming out of her face.
Well, like you were saying, I coach basketball. I coach boys basketball prior to even having kids, and I was because I'm just so competitive, man. We have to win at all costs, right? And then you have kids. It's like, oh well. It's not all about that. It's not all, I mean, winning. Like I said, I will forever believe winning is important, but there's so much to life, more than the wins and losses.
Big time.
Yeah, and winning in the bigger picture, sometimes means how we handle the loss in the small battle.
Absolutely, great thing to say. Absolutely,
the winning big. So
Abe and Mia, you better win.
win.
Yeah.
Or you're not going to get.
Yeah, you're not going to get dinner tonight.
Yeah. Good stuff. All right, we want to thank Crimer's Beer House again and Casey's Outdoor Solution. Again, if you like what you're listening to, please do us a favor. Subscribe to our channel. Also, share our show, man. We need to share the show. That's the only way. Conversations like this are real. They're genuine. Nothing was scripted here other than I had to kind of remember about how old we were. That was about it.
I wrote it on my arm.
Yeah. But, this is just real stuff, and hopefully there was value in it. So please share the show. Give us 5-star ratings on the various platforms that you are tuning in on. Any last words, gentlemen?
Dads, get involved. You'll never go wrong. There's not many negative aspects. Again, it doesn't have to be sports. Get involved with your kids, and your whole family unit and life will get better.
Yeah.
That's just you can't go wrong. That's my last advice to them.
Great.
For sure. Yeah. I think a lot of guys, it's hard to share this message. It's not something a lot of guys sharing feelings and talking about. Man, I would just encourage you, just be bold in this. Like, this message is nothing special, but it's a message that needs to be heard. So just like you were saying, Merle, man, share this show. It's not something that a lot of guys are doing, so share it because what Keith is talking about, man, it's a good message for all dads to hear. So
yeah, good. All right, sign us out, man.
Heck yeah, Keith, thanks so much for being on the show.
Absolutely enjoyed it, guys. Appreciate it.
Go out there and be some strong dads.
Be strong.
Hey, this is Kyle Crawford from Strong Dads. Strong Dads podcast would love to thank the Crimer's Beer House for coming alongside of us. The Crimer's Beer House was started in 1982 by the Crimer family, and since that time, they have definitely become a Cincinnati favorite. So if you're looking for an incredible meal in an incredible setting, definitely go down to Route 128 and check out the Crimer's Beer House.